Hello there and welcome to a revision tutorial on the Henry VIII and Wolsey topic, in which we're going to look at the reasons why Cardinal Wolsey fell from power in 1529. So here's what we'll do. We'll have a look firstly at events and we'll have a look at some key terms to understand. Then we'll have a look at the role of Anne Boleyn in Wolsey's downfall. We'll have a look at his position at court and how his relationship with nobility impacted. And then we'll finally have a look at the reasons why Wolsey had actually lasted for so long and what had changed by 1529 that resulted in his fall. We'll build our tasks in this presentation into these sections, so there won't be a separate task section this time. Just pause the presentation here and have a read through, and then we'll talk about the events that you can see in more detail. Okay, so our key point is in yellow. Wolsey's fall is inextricably linked to the failure of the divorce campaign. You can see that the Blackfriars trial ended in July, and then just months later, Wolsey had been dismissed from his key offices. So anything that we look at in the process of Wolsey falling from power is framed within this key development, and that's the collapse in the King's Great Matter. So we'll have a look at what went on in those crucial months that followed the collapse of the Blackfriars court, and we'll have a look to see at the impact of court factions. But what we can definitely say is that Wolsey was charged with prime munere. We'll have a look at that in a moment or so. And he retired from court to York, where he was Archbishop. In the months that followed, while Wolsey was at York, he clearly tried to get reinstated. He remained active. He was found to be making contact with representatives of foreign governments, with foreign ambassadors. This was reported to Henry by Wolsey's political opponents, and it's only at that point that Wolsey was arrested. But dramatically, he didn't make it back to London to face trial and eventual execution. On his way down to London in late November, Wolsey dramatically collapsed and died on the steps of Leicester Abbey, possibly of a stroke, but we're not entirely sure. Now, these are some key events in British history, so they've been well studied by historians. A traditional interpretation emphasises the importance of the events of the divorce crisis. And in this interpretation, historians accepted the idea that was given at the time that Wolsey had plotted against Anne Boleyn and her rise to protect his own position, and that as events played out, a long-term anti-Wolsey conspiracy, a long-term faction at court, seized their opportunity to act against him. More recent works on Wolsey's fall just place a different emphasis on things, and more emphasis is placed on the importance of short-term opportunism. They emphasise the importance of the role of individuals. The key individuals here are Anne Boleyn and the Duke of Suffolk, and in particular the Duke of Norfolk. That it's short-term opportunism that does for Wolsey. So when we study this period, we've got a little bit of terminology to be aware of. I think these four terms here will help your understanding. You're going to need to get to know them. Our first term is the charge that Wolsey faced, and that's of prime munere. Now, this was an ancient medieval crime of serving a foreign master, in this case the Pope, basically acting in another government's interests against the king. We're certainly going to use the term faction as well. Now, in this case, factions are informal groups at court which have a shared political interest. Often these factions come and go as an issue came and went. Now, historians are really interested in the extent to which faction was a feature of Henry VIII's court. Again, lots has been written on this. Our last two are more straightforward. Specifically, treason, which is the crime that Wolsey was arrested for, is an act of betraying one's king or country. And lastly, an opportunist is somebody who takes advantage of a situation. So if you can pepper your work with these terms, your work's going to really benefit. So next, let's have a look at the importance of the role of Anne Boleyn. Just pause the presentation here and have a read through, and then we'll speak in more detail. Okay, so our first thing to note about Anne Boleyn is that she was politically much more ambitious than Catherine of Aragon had been. Not only did she want to rise, she also wanted to gain influence. And she came as part of a faction at court, the Boleyn faction at court. So Anne Boleyn is backed by her father, the Earl of Wiltshire, Thomas Boleyn, and her brother George, who's a member of the King's Chamber. But the influence that Anne wanted would come from access and control of access to Henry. Now, of course, that's a position that Cardinal Wolsey held. He had been Henry's confidant and advisor for well over a decade. And so Anne and Wolsey were in direct competition. So when the divorce campaign failed, it's an ideal moment for Anne to seize advantage over her rival for Henry's attention. And she clearly used her access to Henry to turn the king against Wolsey. Wolsey was blamed not only for failing to get the divorce, but actually for engineering the failure of divorce, for delaying and making sure that the court at Blackfriars had failed. All the time, Anne Boleyn fed Henry information that Wolsey had turned against them for his own benefits. And this eventually is a key reason why Wolsey fell. We can see these points in some nice sources of evidence. Just pause the presentation and have a read through this letter from Anne Boleyn to Wolsey. Now I want you to have a think about what this source shows us about the nature and extent of Anne's power. Have a look at the way that she seems to hint at her control of the king. Have a look at that in the top line. And then you can see how she presents herself as a wronged woman, as an innocent. Now, of course, Anne Boleyn was anything but that. She's highly intelligent. She's highly astute. But you can see that what she's done is to describe the failure of the court as Wolsey's fault. That it's the wrong that he has done her. You can imagine Wolsey's reaction to getting this letter. It came hot on the heels of the collapse of the Blackfriars court. So with our task, it's not a major piece of writing, but just pop down some ideas, again with quotes if you can to prove your points. What does that show us about Anne Boleyn's power? And we've got another one here. Just pause the presentation and have a read through. Now this time we've got Wolsey receiving a letter by one of his key advisors, one of his key men, Thomas Cromwell. And you can see that Cromwell's been tasked with reporting back to Wolsey what's going on at court about how his chances of being re-established and welcomed back to court are going. Both short extracts show you Anne's influence and her growing influence, the way that people seem to be scared of her, and the way that she seems to have got to a point where she controls access to the king. So same job here, not a major piece of writing, but what does this source show you about the nature and extent of Anne's power? Again, if you can prove your points with a short quote, that'd be great. So let's turn next to Wolsey's wider position at court. As before, pause the presentation and have a read through, and then we'll talk about this in more detail. So, Anne Boleyn had replaced Wolsey as Henry's confidant. But it's the fact that Wolsey had no other supporters at court that made this such a key point and such a key reason in his fall. Now, of course, Wolsey was a lowborn. He was the son of a butcher, and he was operating at a court full of aristocrats of noble families. Now, it suited Henry to have a lowborn advisor without a large client base surrounding him to represent him against the noble families, particularly when he was a young and inexperienced king. Wolsey really acts as a cushion, as a buffer between Henry and the nobility. So Henry had protected Wolsey throughout the 1520s, had placed power into Wolsey's hands and wealth into Wolsey's hands, and had allowed that to happen. By doing that, he stopped the great noble families from having that power, that patronage, and that influence. So Wolsey is hated by the great nobility. They thought that he had taken their rightful place. He was doing the jobs that they had been born to do. Now, Wolsey didn't help himself here. He acted arrogantly. He loved to rub the nobles' faces in his position and his status, calling them to court and that kind of thing. But crucially, it meant that Wolsey did not have at court influential people to speak for him. He owed his position to Henry. So when he's unseated by Anne Boleyn as his closest confidant and advisor, there's nobody to speak for him, to represent him. There's a key noble here for us to be aware of, and that's Thomas Howard, the Duke of Norfolk. Here's the picture at the top. Now, Anne Boleyn is his niece, and Howard hoped that the rise of Anne Boleyn would lead to an increase in his influence at court. And as the most powerful and wealthiest noble in the country, again, he thought this was his rightful place. So this is an ideal moment for the Howard family to increase their influence. The other noble you can see is the Duke of Suffolk, Charles Brandon. And Brandon similarly hated Wolsey, fell into line with the Howard faction at court, hoping to increase his influence on the back of Wolsey's downfall. We can see this in action in this picture. Now, this image is taken from George Cavendish's biography about Wolsey. Cavendish was Wolsey's valet or servant, and in this Cavendish depicts a moment where during Wolsey's disgrace, the Dukes of Suffolk and Norfolk appeared at his quarters to strip him of one of his chains of office. It's incredible that he did this in person. This shows us a great deal about the nature of the Tudor court, about the personal hostility, about the personal aspect of power and authority in this period. If you look in the background of the picture, you can make out plate and valuables being taken. So have a little think here. What does this source, show us about the nature of the hostility that Wolsey faced at court? Again, not a major piece of writing, but just make your thoughts concrete. Okay, finally, let's try to account for Wolsey's career. So, Cardinal Wolsey had worked as chief minister for 15 years. And that begs the question, how had he lasted so long? Just pause the presentation and have a read through this list of possible reasons why he'd lasted. Okay, so Henry had confidence in Wolsey. And we know that personally the two got on. Increasingly, certainly after he became papal legate, Wolsey also offers status to the new young king's regime. We know that Wolsey was a gifted and successful politician. As we've already said, he offers a buffer, a cushion against noble influence. He's a way to prevent that happening through the 1520s. And lastly, throughout the 1520s, Wolsey had been instrumental in keeping the nobility under control, while Henry's authority grew as a young king. So all of these are reasons why Wolsey had been a successful chief minister for 15 years. So what I want you to think about is what had changed. Because Wolsey had failed before. He'd had crises such as the Amicable Grant in 1525, where he had performed badly. But Henry had chosen to protect him, but not this time. So what I want you to think about is why Wolsey's ascendancy ended in 1529. What was fundamentally different in the circumstances of 1529 than at any other time throughout the 1520s? Just see if you can write a sentence or so on each of those reasons, and again, try to use specific points if you can. Okay, we've come to the end. Thanks for watching. Remember, there's plenty of other guidance videos on the CHSG History YouTube channel.